Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Direct Insurance Podcast, otherwise known as DIP, a podcast for independent insurance agents brought to you by Insurance Advisors Direct. Today, we're going to be talking about 10 ways to be a better communicator, and I'm very excited because my special guest today is Ken Peterson. Ken, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, what kind of product lines do you sell? How long have you been in the industry?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I remember I was actually considered like the young guy, but now I'm obviously not. So I've been doing this for a really long time, since probably about 1992. So it's been a while. Just pretty much specializing in working with agents and brokers and talking to them about solutions with regards to their retiree group benefits.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a communicator would you say you are?
I think it kind of depends on the situation, but it's funny because again, some of the points that we're going to get into, where one of them says, "Don't make things up." If it's something that I generally don't know anything about, it probably would be more on the quieter side and just try to see if I could figure out what they were talking about. But if it is something related to either what I know, which is either the retiree space, retiree group space, or something related to sports or something like that, or having kids or whatever, then, obviously you can fill in some anecdotes and things like that related to that. So with regards to how good I am as a communicator, I think and maybe I'm being my hardest critic. I wouldn't say I'm a 10 at all. I'd, probably say, 7 or 8 probably, or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that if I were to answer the same question as far as like being a good conversationalist, I'd probably give myself, again, also being my harshest critic, I'd probably say about between like a 3 to a 5, because
Yeah.
I am just one of those people where I unfortunately tend to take over the conversation. And it is something that I've been working on for the last couple of years. But yeah, I also used to work in sales myself. So it's definitely been a transition of trying to become a better listener as opposed to a
Right.
better speaker. So
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, like we're not all perfect. So I mean, like we've all got things that we want to work on. So, but one of the things that we
One
wanted to
time.
talk about today was being able to work on being a good communicator. So let's go ahead and dip into some insurance. So the 10 rules for good conversations, we want to do this because we want to create good relationships that start with practicing with good conversations. So we have some top 10 best practices for being a great conversationalist. My recommendation is to choose one. To all of the agents out there, if you're out there listening, choose one, master it, and then, kind of start adding the rest to your list of mastery. Number one is don't multitask. So you have to be present in the conversation and maintain meaningful eye contact. For me, maintaining eye contact is something very like it's very hard for me to do. I don't know why. It's like to me, it's kind of like weird to keep somebody like locked eyes for a long period of time. But what is your experience like in trying to not multitask when you're sitting down with a client?
Yeah, I think it's easier to do when it's a one-on-one, or if you're in a situation where you're doing a presentation or something like that, when you're basically you're focused on that conversation. It's specifically about what you're presenting or what they're presenting to you. My thing that I'm always working on is I attend a lot of conferences, and what I try to do when I am talking to somebody is focus on talking to that person directly, because what I catch myself doing, and actually what other people do as well, is like while you're talking, like say I'm at a conference and I'm talking to you, over your shoulder, I can see there's somebody else that I wanted to talk to as well, and just trying to make sure you're kind of scanning the room as you're talking and talking about it. So I try to make sure that I, like you said, keep the eye contact, because you don't want to make it look like, or you don't want the people that you're talking to, you don't want them to feel like they're not important, and you're just trying to get through that conversation so you can get on to the next one. So my thing is to always try to, when I'm talking to that person, maintain the eye contact. But there's times where they're doing it to me. I can totally tell when I'm talking to someone, and you can tell that they're kind of looking left or right or whatever, trying to see who else is coming through the room. But yeah, that's my thing, is I'm always trying to make sure I maintain the eye contact when it's a bigger space or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that eye contact is one of those things that is like a true body language sort of
Mhm.
situation where if you know that somebody's locked eyes with you, you know for sure that they are fully engaged in what you're talking to them about. And it makes them feel more important as well, because if you're not maintaining eye contact with your clients or while you're trying to have a conversation with them, you might be talking or they might be talking. And if you're not making eye contact with them, or even if like you're on your phone answering other emails, like
Right.
that's kind of just like rude, like
Yeah, it's rude. Right.
if I'm having a conversation with somebody and you're on your phone, I'm like, okay, do you want me to wait and pause until you're done? Because like
Yeah,
we can pick
exactly.
this up in like 5 minutes. So making sure that you're giving your clients your undivided attention by not multitasking is going to be something that's going to just make them feel more important. And it's going to not hinder that relationship if you're fully engaged in that conversation. So number
Correct.
2 on our list is don't pontificate. So most folks do not want to hear what happened to you. So keep the conversation about them and their needs and wants. So one of the best things that you can do as an agent is to get your clients to talk about themselves, because you as an agent, you are the industry expert on the products and services for the carriers that you're with. And it's really important for you to be able to listen to your clients and hearing more about their needs, their wants, their life, their lifestyle, because then you're better able to make good product recommendations for them. So tell me a little bit about what that experience is like for you and what you do to keep yourself on track and to get your clients to continue to talk about themselves.
Yeah, so it again, it goes back to, even if you're at those conference type situations, walking around the room and either talking to people at the booth, you can obviously read and see what their banners say and things like that, because sometimes they have bullet points kind of telling them what they do. But you obviously then run into people where you kind of see their name tag or whatever, and you don't know who they are or what have you. Then you try to be like, all right, hey, I'm Ken Peterson. Hey, nice to meet you. And for me, it's like, do you do group benefits? Like, you can see something maybe in their name tag or something that says something with regards to that. It's like, do you work with group benefits? Let me know, tell me what you do, and maybe we can see if there's a fit. And then they kind of go into what they do. It's kind of just playing on those, I guess, clues, I guess, when you kind of just, you let them kind of tell you what they do, see if there's a fit with regards, because again, being in sales, you're trying to find if there's some synergies, here and there. But with regards to having them, just having them kind of keep talking about themselves, it's then you kind of find out, either it's where they're from, where they grew up, or something like that. You start getting into more details. Then it's like, oh yeah, okay, I know where that is, or what have you. And it's like, oh yeah, and it's like, yeah, I moved when, then you have people that kind of, tell you their life story, which is fine, but you kind of just want to, kind of keep it about them and just try to see where the synergies might be.
Oh, yeah. I think that when you get your client to really talk about themselves, it really opens up those additional communication scenarios where you can really find a way to truly connect with that person, because you never know what you're going to have in common with someone. And if you're the one who's kind of like doing all the talking, your client might feel like they know you. But at the end of the day, the true object of the game is to kind of get to know them. And
Mhm.
then that's when you can kind of really find those true points of connection, because if they trust you enough to really open up to you and tell you their entire life story, then that's kind of when you've kind of got it in there. So being able to keep the conversation really about them, finding out things about them that are going to make more sense for them in the sense of recommending like a product for them. And not even just that, but being able to obtain different referrals as well. Because if you get somebody talking about their family and their life, their lifestyle, you'll be able to, kind of essentially like ask for referrals and be like, oh my gosh, well, you mentioned your sister earlier. Does your sister need assistance with what I do? I've been able to help you with these products and services. How about your sister? How about your uncle? How about your dad? Like when you get people to start talking about themselves more, it opens up those different lines of communication in order to generate more business for yourself.
Yep, definitely.
So number 3 that we're going over is don't use closed-ended questions. Closed-ended questions are questions that can be answered with either yes or no. And back when I was working in sales, that was one of the things that they told us, was to never ask those closed-ended questions. You should always be asking an open-ended question or something that can be answered like in the form of an essay. So what is your strategy in going through conversations with your clients for being able to ask them those more open-ended questions in order to get more out of them?
I think it's more of, tell me what are your pain points? And again, being in sales, I'm trying to find the solution for them that, would be the best fit. And I've got a couple different ways I can go. It's kind of like the, choose your own adventure books that used to have when you were little. And by getting those kind of open-ended questions, I can turn left or right, go straight or back or whatever, depending on what the answers kind of come back to be. I'm constantly trying to, what are your pain points? How, and again, you're trying to, like you said, make it more of an essay type of situation. What are your ultimate goals, with this, instead of, yeah, like you said, yes or no answer type questions, which, some probably can be helped with some of those, but there are some of the open-ended questions that are really going to help you get to the goal of what, this particular client is trying to find a solution for.
Yeah, I agree. Because when you're able to ask those more open-ended questions, so instead of asking like, do you go to the doctor 6 times a year or more, yes or no? Like you should be asking questions like, how many times per year do you go to the doctor?
Right.
Or how many specialists do you see? Like, do like I guess like a simple question like, do you wear glasses? Yes or no? Because there's not really like an in-between there. When it
Right.
comes to those simple questions, you can kind of ask those more closed-ended questions, but to really focus on asking those more open-ended questions to be able to get your client to tell more of their story so that then you're better able to understand them and then make those great product recommendations for them. That's really where it'll come to play and help you really grow your business. So
I
number
agree.
4 is just go with the flow. So thoughts will come and go into your mind, but don't interrupt the other person to get your point out unless it's extremely, extremely important. And this is my biggest fault in life is kind of just like interjecting into the conversation. There are some times where I'm having a conversation with someone and I got like this thought that pops up into my head and I'm just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. All I want to do is just like blurt this out. But I really desperately have to just let it go. And that even if it's something that I really want to say, and if I feel like it's something that's important to add to the conversation, I really just have to focus on just letting the conversation go where it's going to go. Because if I lose my train of thought by the time that the other person is done speaking, that's fine. Either that or I can be like, "Ooh, I have a point. Let me circle back to that once you're done." You can always do something like that. But so what is that experience like for you? And have you ever had those moments where you just want to be like, "Ah, like there's something I just need to say."
Yeah, well, it's funny because this almost feels to me like it relates back to number one, where it says, don't multitask. Because again, if you're in those situations where you're trying to talk to a specific person and you're mentally trying to make sure you just stay focused on that one person you're talking to. So again, they feel like they're special and everything like that. But if you're the one you're kind of looking around going, oh my God, I got to talk to that guy. Oh, I got to talk to her, like that type of thing where you're running around, then other thoughts potentially, pop in your head, or you forget where you were talking about with that person that you're talking with, and you've lost wherever you were going with that, and you may have lost them as well because now they don't feel as important because you're not paying really attention. You're just kind of blabbing to them, what have you. So there are things that you kind of mentally have to block out when you're kind of going through these presentations, and whether you're talking to someone one-on-one or to a group. So it's obviously just you want to make sure you're focused, and obviously we go with the flow, because you never know when something will pop up or someone will throw you a question where you're kind of like, oh, and then you get all flustered or what have you. So yeah, you just got to kind of be ready and stay focused.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot as well because sometimes I find myself that if there's something that I really want to say or add to the conversation, by the time that the other person is done speaking and then they want to ask me a question, I'm kind of just like, oh, wait, hold on, wait, what were we talking about again? Because I was so focused on what it was that I wanted to say. So it's
Yeah,
just kind
where
of like
was I?
staying,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of just more about like staying focused and staying active and engaged in the conversation because, once that person is done and then you have something else that you can add to that, that's really where you kind of want to be and you want to be able to play this beautiful game of tennis. But
Right.
if you're not focused and engaged, you're not going to be playing the game very well. I don't know anything about tennis, but if I had more analogies, I would make them.
No, that's a good one.
Number 5 is don't make things up. If you don't know, say that you don't know and then seek out the answer later. I think that this is something that's really, really important for agents, especially if you are kind of like a one man or a one woman show. Because if you find that you're kind of just like making things up as you go, just to kind of make yourself seem smarter, and then if the truth kind of comes out later on, you've kind of like lost that relationship of trust and rapport with that client. So when you're talking to a client or maybe just like anybody, maybe you're again like at a conference or maybe you're doing something more one-on-one and there's something that you don't know, how is it that you really go about that situation in order to keep that trust and rapport with that person?
Yeah, I think it goes back to even like when I know for me as a younger, salesperson, I think it's you're trying to make sure you're doing the right thing. And there potentially were times that, you would make things up with regards to not necessarily, saying, oh yeah, we can totally sell a program that way or whatever, when you have no idea if you can actually do that or not. I know there's some people that do that, and I tried to, I don't know if it was dance around the answer or what have you. But it's, as you get older, you realize it's okay to say, I don't know. I'm going to have to go back to that. I've gotten to the point where, yeah, if I don't know something or I haven't heard of a certain ruling or something that's happened with either with CMS or something with some sort of regulation, I'm like, I wasn't aware of that. I don't know anything about that. So I'm going to have to check into that and get back to you. So it is what it is. I mean, it's, if you don't know, just, you don't make it up.
Yeah, I agree. But jumping back into number 6. So number 6 is don't equate your experience to theirs. Your experiences are not the same and they will never be the same. So let people kind of just like have the floor and express themselves. Now, for me, I don't really know how to feel about this rule because for me personally, I feel like that if I'm having a conversation with someone and we're having a true conversation and like wanting to experience about different connections, and somebody says that there's something that either happened to them or something that they experienced, and I had a very similar experience happen to me, like, now I want to share in my experience and how, the situations might have been similar yet different. Now, I know that obviously, like, if you're trying to get to really know someone and you're having a conversation in the sense of like a sales conversation, yeah, you kind of just want to, kind of leave yourself out of it. But I think that when you are having, like, if you really want to truly connect with someone, I personally don't agree with this rule, but that's just me. So tell me how you feel about this rule and really what your experience is like in that.
Again, it's coming from a sales perspective where you're trying to find some sort of common ground, where you guys, whether it's someone's really into music or someone's really into sports, or you're trying to find some sort of common ground where it's, whether it's with kids or, like right now, I'm going through the phase of, I've got my son's a freshman in college. My daughter's going to start college in the fall. So it's the empty nester part that potentially is coming up for my wife and I. And it's going to be kind of a weird situation. And, my son came home yesterday to spend Easter, with the family and everything. He's been gone. So it's great to have him back, but it's kind of funny to have him back at the same time. So you're trying to, you'll be talking to someone that maybe you're trying to connect with and do some sales with or what have you. And they're like, oh yeah, I went through that too. And it's like, you kind of get used to it. And, you're kind of going back and forth and people kind of give each other advice on certain things. And then you kind of find out that everyone is, kind of going through a lot of the same stuff. So whether it's, I don't know, like yesterday I was on a presentation where someone literally was coming from, just being in a car accident where someone hit them and then took off and had to deal with the police and the whole thing. And everyone was kind of going, oh my gosh, I'm glad you're okay. But then it was more of like, I had a situation where this happened. Oh yeah, me too. Or something, where, that type of thing. So people are always trying to find where you're just trying to find common ground so that you guys can all either celebrate together, commiserate together, what have you. And like even, and again, this is like going into the weeds, potentially it's coming up. But like last night, my school, that's what I'm wearing Quinnipiac hat, last night beat Michigan in hockey in the Frozen Four. And I had no idea that they would be able to win that game last night. So apologies to any Michigan people out there, but it was, I'm more stunned. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm more stunned than anything else. I was at and again, I'm big into sports. So I was at the Big Ten title game a couple of years ago when they beat Iowa. So that was a lot of fun. And I did have Michigan stuff on for that to support my buddy who was a big Michigan guy. Yeah. I mean, you're trying to find common ground where you can then build a foundation to then potentially work with that person on some groups or what have you down the road.
Yeah, I think that's really important as well. I like that you brought up that everybody's really just trying to find like not only the common ground, but when somebody shares an experience and then there are other people that are kind of able to jump in and say like, oh yeah, I had something similar or the same thing happened to me. You're really just able to then, like you said, celebrate together, but also really confide in one another and being able to share in those experiences, whether they have been good or bad. And I think that's something that's very special even about social media. So I don't think I really even told you a whole lot about myself, but I'm the digital marketing assistant, but also social media strategist here at IAD. community. So, one of the things that I find is truly important about social media is really sharing our experiences, because I think that so many people for so long were just apt to not sharing things about themselves. Like, you really only ever wanted to share the good things. And especially when social media kind of first emerged with like MySpace and Facebook and Twitter, everybody kind of was only showing like the good parts of their lives. And especially with Instagram, everything is like Instagram perfect. And how, we used to say like, oh, this is Instagram versus reality type thing. So I think that it's really special that people nowadays, especially in the digital space and in real life, are sharing more of those personal experiences, especially the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between, because it's a great way for us to be able to connect with one another and support one another. Because if you've had somebody that's gone through a really traumatic experience and you've had a similar experience, you're then able to kind of like comfort one another in a way, because then that's how we're able to have a stronger community.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's, and obviously there's bad actors out there, but for the most part, I think, most of the people are there to support each other, whether someone loses a parent or they have, put their dog down or something like that. Everyone has, kind of been through that at some point. So it's just kind of, you try to be there for that person, whether it's you actually, type something up or call them up, or, you hit the hug like thing or whatever it is, that it just shows that you saw it and that you care.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I'm usually one of those people that will I do tend to doom scroll quite a bit on Facebook, but I'll be sitting there and I'm like either liking things or I'm hearting things, and it's very uncommon for me to comment on someone else's post unless it's something that's just like super positive, because I've just gotten to a point in my life where if there's lots of drama in the comments, I just don't want to be there. And plus I don't like getting the push notifications to my phone saying like, oh, Susie Q also commented on the post that you commented on. It's like, okay, well, if I commented on somebody's, post of like them having ice cream with their family, and I'm like, oh, that looks so yummy. It's like I don't need the notification from
Yeah.
someone else saying like, oh my gosh, yeah, like chocolate or vanilla. It's like
Right.
I don't care.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it's that's that I think that being able to connect with people is going to be one of the most important things in this business, because I've had many agents tell me before too that they're not in the business of selling products or services. They're in the business of making friends and building relationships, which is the most important part of this business.
Mhm. Again,
So
finding that common ground.
yeah, exactly. Number 7 is don't repeat yourself. Nothing is worse than a broken record. And I am definitely guilty of repeating myself. I just find that I get really excited, or something that I maybe have said before in the conversation relates to what we would be talking about in the current moment. But what do you feel like your experience is like when you're having conversations with clients, whether you're doing a presentation or you're doing something more one on one? Do you find yourself repeating certain things? And what do you do to kind of have like that mental check for yourself to kind of be like, oh, wait, I need to stop that? And then how do you correct it?
Yeah, I think it really, again, it goes to different spots. Are you doing an elevator pitch where you kind of have an idea of the 30-second summary of kind of what you do when you're talking to somebody, or if it's a longer conversation and you're trying to find out again what their pain points are, you try to find where the fits are with the solutions that you have, and then you may not have any solutions for what their pain points are, and that's fine. You can then refer them to somebody else and try to be a resource for them that way. But again, same for me. I think it's the same thing when I start talking about the different, whether it's group Medicare supplement, group Medicare Advantage, group Part D RX, solutions. I try to make sure that I'm hitting the main bullet points with regards to that. But then there are times where I'm like, wait, I said that already. You just repeated yourself with regards to. But then you're kind of like, well, maybe they didn't hear me the first time, and maybe I'm talking too fast, and they're trying to process everything that I'm mentioning. So you try to just make sure that you like you said, don't get too excited, and then you just start going going at 40 million miles a second. So and kind of calming it down and kind of stay in the zone.
Oh yeah, that's oh my gosh. I'm just one of those like really like excitable people. I don't
Yeah.
know. I consider myself a pretty like bubbly, like I guess I'm more considered like outgoing now, but I don't know, I just find that I get really excited over like the littlest things, and
Mhm.
I do tend to talk pretty fast, and I do know that I need to kind of like rein that all in, and it's something that I know even in myself that I'm working on. But it can be really hard that when you're in the middle of having a conversation with someone and you can kind of like see yourself starting to lose someone,
Mm-hmm.
Coincidentally, I was actually doing a more in-person discovery call with an agent the other day who wanted to perhaps enroll in one of our social media marketing programs. And I could tell exactly where I lost him because he was kind of like overwhelmed with what I was having to say about the business because he did have quite a few questions about what set our service apart from, other services that he had worked with before. And I was kind of going through like the different like metrics and the strategies and stuff that we were doing, but I could already tell that it wasn't really things that I was using verbiage that he didn't understand. And I did find myself kind of repeating myself in certain aspects because I was trying to explain it in a way that maybe he would better understand. And it was just eyes glossed over, like
Yeah.
knock knock, is anybody home, and it's something that I definitely need to work on, but it's we just take it one day at a time, and you recognize where those pain points are in yourself, and recognize your opportunities, and then just do your best to work on them and move forward.
Yeah, and same thing back to if you're one of those conferences where you're talking to multiple people throughout the day, and like you said, you can kind of tell as you're going into maybe the spiel of what you do, and you can kind of get a feel that it's probably not it's not what they do or not an interest, and then that's when they may start scanning the room, seeing who else is coming up that I can talk to or something like that. So yeah, you kind of like, maybe I just work on something else a little bit better. But yeah, totally get what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So number 8, we actually just kind of touched on a little bit ago but number 8 is don't get stuck in the weeds. So avoid focusing on the smaller details and get all of the most important information. Focus on the bigger picture as opposed to tunnel visioning on the small task. And again, this is something that I kind of struggle with myself because I find myself to be very detail oriented, and it's very important for my job role in and of itself, because especially when I'm producing content that has to be obviously grammatically correct. Everything has to be spelled correctly. So making sure that I'm really paying attention to like those really, really small details is important. But then it can be really hard to then just kind of take the blinders off and see the bigger picture and have a broader understanding of all of the things that need to happen or all the things that you're doing. So as an agent and you're kind of like stuck in this one section of the conversation, and you're kind of like trying to further elaborate on that portion of whatever it is that you're trying to explain to your client. You're at this point, you're kind of like, again, stuck in the weeds. So how do you avoid getting stuck in the weeds, or how do you get yourself out?
And again, I think you can tell by looking at someone's face if you are getting too into the, like you said, too into the weeds, whether it regards to, and again, I'll equate it back to me talking about retiree group benefits. And if I start talking about CMS regulations or how certain things are done behind the scenes through CMS, Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services and whatnot, and how we have to coordinate everything with them and the regulations involved, they just want to know, can you save me money and help my retirees? That's kind of what the main thing is. You're trying to make sure you do that. And then if you start going into more of the details where you can tell that this person is just like, I still don't even understand Medicare. And now you're getting into details of Medicare that I don't even know about. So like you said, you have to kind of rein that back in and just kind of give them the 30,000-foot overview and see how you are able to help them in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. I think that especially when I'm trying to give scripts to my agents for them to kind of film for their social media pages, I kind of tend to get the questions like, "Oh, but this doesn't seem like enough information." And I'm like, "No, this is perfect," because you have to think about it when somebody's scrolling through social media, like they're just sitting there, they're doing this
Mm-hmm.
for minutes or hours at a time. The point is to try to get them to stop in their tracks, watch whatever it is that you have to say, be interested in whatever you're saying, and then have them to be able to continue to scroll on. So if you've got something that's just like a nice little golden nugget of information, but you're able to kind of keep them coming back for more, that's really where you'll find a little bit more success, because you really just want to take these really, really broad pictures, break them down into those nice little like bite-sized pieces that are easy for the general public to understand. Because as an industry professional, you've spent now what, 31 years, studying the insurance industry and understanding everything there is to understand. But to the general public, they don't know anything. I mean, shoot, even before I started working at IAD, I had no idea how insurance worked. I mean,
Right.
like people were calling on my first day and they had all these questions. And I was like, today's my first day.
Right.
Like I know a lot about marketing, but I don't really know a whole lot about insurance. And it's again like something that I had to educate myself on. But it's really hard to, go from that tunnel vision and trying to explain something so well because you know that either these are the frequently asked questions that you get, or these are the things that you feel like your clients don't fully understand. But if you're trying to basically like beat that information into them and trying to get them to understand that one small aspect of the conversation, you're missing the rest of this really broad picture and things to be able to explain to them to a point
Mhm.
where you can essentially circle back to your original point, and then it'll be easier for them to understand because now they've seen the entire picture.
Yeah, and again, it's just you're trying to make sure you find that common ground and find I keep saying it again, don't repeat yourself, but the pain points. Maybe I'm doing it right now. But you find where you can find, this, you want to provide the solution for them that helps them out the most. And I know for us, it's medical and prescription drugs sold together, but sometimes they just want the RX, or sometimes they just want the medical. You just try to find where you kind of fit in. And if you don't, like you said, then you just kind of move on. You can still, hang out and be friends, and just not not necessarily working on anything together. Just you just try to, like you said, and then goes back to the other one, just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to number 9. Number 9 is don't listen to reply, listen to understand. If your mouth is open, you're not learning. Actively listen to the other person to fully grasp and understand what they're saying. Repeat their words or phrases back to them in your responses to show them that you are actively listening to them. And again, I feel like this kind of goes back to the just go with the flow point where you kind of like got something in your mind and it's just something that you just like really want to be able to say. But if you're not actively listening and listening to understand, you're again not going to be able to find that common ground with that person because you've kind of just ended up making the conversation all about you as opposed to about them. And again, your job as an agent is to be able to provide solutions because unfortunately our healthcare system is broken. There are all kinds of issues that, the world is experiencing right now, and so many issues that our healthcare system is experiencing. Like, for example, there was a Try Guys video that I was just watching the other day where one of the guys, he had like a really, really terrible like leg infection. And they were people like out in hospital beds, out in like hallways, and they live out in LA. And so obviously with like a really, really large city like LA, their hospitals are pretty much like overrun. They're all under like code red, which means that all of their hospitals are, full to the max. You've got doctors that are seeing anywhere from 40 to 50 patients in a smaller amount of time than we've ever seen in history. So it's we're in this part of our lives right now where we're caught between a rock and a hard place because it's like, what do we do? So there are so many individuals that are experiencing all of these issues with their healthcare because either they feel like they're paying too much in either like monthly premiums, they're not getting the benefits that they want, they're not able to get the treatment that they want. They're not able to see the doctors that they want in the amount of time that they want to be able to see their doctors. And everything is just taking so much more time than it ever has before. And especially since we are now in the digital age where we're able to get our groceries delivered to our doorstep in a matter of hours. We don't even have to leave the house. We can have some stuff delivered from Amazon Prime instead of having to wait 2 weeks like we used to back like 20 years ago. We had to have it on our doorstep in less than 8 hours. So
Right.
like we're now so accustomed to this idea of convenience, but then unfortunately when it comes to our healthcare, we're definitely in a different boat. So if we're
Yeah.
able to spend more of our time in listening to understand our clients as opposed to listening to reply, we're going to find ourselves in a much better place with having that great client agent relationship.
Mhm. No, and you make a good point where I think the fact that, with COVID and everything and getting everything delivered to your house, and even with like say telehealth, which has been great. I think that's been probably good for people that couldn't leave. It's a good, access point for them to at least get some services that way. But you still need that one-on-one in person, I think, contact. And the doctor needs to physically like check you out. But if they can't get in there to see them, and it's the doctors are all burned out from seeing, like you said, 40, 50 people a day, things are going to get missed. And it just, you get in this churn and burn, type of situation. And it's just, it's not a very efficient way to do it. And unfortunately, it's probably not a one fixed thing. I mean, it's like there's multiple layers to this that need to happen in order to do it. And while some countries, like Canada or Europe or whatever, seem to have national health care and things like that, the stories that I hear is that it's almost like going to the deli counter at the grocery store, if you still go, and taking a number, waiting for they call your number for the cold cuts and stuff like that, if that's what you're going to try to do. But is that a better way? I don't know, I'm knock on wood healthy right now, but if something were to happen, I'd kind of want to be able to make sure I could get in there right away. But if you're going to have a doctor that's so, flustered and just running from place to place and going, yep, send this guy here. Yep. Send this girl here. Yep. Send that woman there, whatever. It's going to be probably too tough to get the right services that you're kind of looking for.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the unfortunate part about just kind of like today's world that we live in, where I mean,
Mhm.
shoot, like, we here as Americans, like we think like, oh, well, Canada's again, like you said, got it all figured out. Like, why can't we figure it out? And there's obviously like a huge push for Medicare for all. I know that we're kind of getting off topic here. We're talking
Yeah,
about
I
good
know.
conversations, but I
Yeah.
think that this is something that's really important to note because I was actually doing a little bit of research on Medicare for all because obviously it's something that always trending on Twitter. And what would actually have to happen in order for every American to receive Medicare benefits? And a lot of people say like, oh, well, people who are 65 and older are on Medicare and like, oh, they get like, it's essentially like free healthcare. And it's like, no, 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 like it's not free.
Nothing's
And
free.
exactly. And it's like, and either way, you're still paying for it through your taxes. Everyone's paying for it. And even if you make what I think, what is it? The income threshold is like $95,000 a year. You
I
make under
believe,
$95,000 a year, your Part B premium is 164.50.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, so still, it's still not free. I mean, and then think about that too. Even if that's if you don't even go to the doctor, like, and
Right.
that's, your Part A premium. If you paid into Medicare for, however many quarters, then like, yes, your Part A premium is pretty much $0. And then like,
Right.
yeah, everybody's like, it's free. Like all of like
Yeah.
the websites say like it's free, but it's like technically it's not free. Like you're not
You,
allowed to
you,
describe it
yeah,
as
you've
free.
been, you've been paying into it this whole time and you either knew it or didn't know it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So people don't realize that it is more expensive than what they think. But then how much would our taxes have to go up? But then we're also having to think here too about how are we going to close the wage gap? I mean, there are people that work 40, 50, 60, sometimes even 70 hours a week. Some people who work 2 jobs, 3 jobs just to provide for their children, pay bills. It's like, do you really think that they want any more money taken out of their paychecks in order to pay for healthcare? No. But the problem is just that we've got so many people that are working these jobs that are not paying more than minimum wage. And so they're doing whatever they can just to get by. And it's not like they exactly have time or money or energy to go to school in order to earn a degree to potentially make more money. But then that's not exactly very promising in today's world though either, because then, you graduate from college, you get this 4-year degree, but then employers, all they want is experience. But then it's like, well, then why in the world did I go to school? Because
Right.
now I know all this stuff, but now you don't want to hire me just because I don't have experience. But so it's like,
Right.
it's like, which end of the blade do you want, the left or the right, or like
Yeah,
the front or the back, whichever way you want to describe it. So
definitely.
it's so many issues that our country is having for everything from our education system, our healthcare system, dear God, like our politics system, just like our government in general. There are so many layers to what the issues are in in the US right now. And it's like, there's like you said, there's no like singular sort of fix to whatever it is that we are experiencing. But at the same time, like, here as agents, we're basically just trying to provide solutions to our consumers by being able to lower their insurance or premium rates, but while also giving them greater benefits for whatever it is that their needs are. Because for somebody who's generally a little bit more healthy, being able to go with a plan that focuses more on that preventative care is going to be obviously a little bit better for them. But then obviously if somebody's had like chronic ailments like their entire life, their healthcare costs are going to be higher, so their premium rates are going to be higher. So, but it's going to be a point of trying to find what sort of premium costs can they afford that's also not going to cripple them in the future by receiving all of these additional costs of care and then getting back like thousands and thousands of dollars worth of bills at the end of each treatment. Yeah,
Yep.
so
And they sit there and like, gee, that was great insurance. Thanks. Just like,
right, exactly. And so then,
yeah.
then have you ever had like a client come back to you like after like a surgery or something and being like, "Oh my gosh, like I still paid all this money for this and, my insurance was supposed to pay for it and it didn't."
Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff coordinates with Medicare. So, and usually we kind of fill in the gaps where that leaves off. So, but there are times where, wait a minute, I thought this was going to be paid or whatever. And again, it turns out to maybe it was coded wrong or incorrectly. And it was supposed to be put under, a different, code. And then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that was picked up. Or, what happens sometimes is, especially for like, say for, and again, getting in the weeds a little bit, if for like diabetic supplies or something like that, retirees can get their meds, they can go through the Part D route and get their meds, but there may be situations where they actually can just use their and it won't be covered under Part D for some reason, or a specific medication might need prior authorization or something like that. Whereas if they went through the Part B as in boy and have it done in the doctor's office, it's picked up at 100%. So it's kind of just, oh, if you did it under, we'll have it filed under Part B, or you do it in the doctor's office, then everything will be picked up. And like, oh, okay. And then it's just, it's some groups or some retirees, sometimes it's a learning process, and maybe a different routine than what they were used to before when they were getting their services done on the active side.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's really what it takes to listen to understand as opposed to listening to reply. Because if you do have a client that's on a certain medication, I'm not going to use. I was going to use insulin as an example, but since now insulin is now being covered at like a $35 per month cap,
Mhm.
that's not really like a great example. But let's say Ozempic, and it is extremely expensive. So,
Mhm.
but it is one of those medications for her that's medically necessary because she doesn't necessarily need insulin because she's type 2 diabetic. But, what other solutions can somebody come up with for her in order to save her those additional dollars on her medications? If it's not covered under Medicare Part B, and if it's not covered under Medicare Part D, or that there's no extra pickup, like you said, like no, if it being written under Part B, where is the solution? So
Yeah.
if you're the agent that's sitting down with this client and you're able to understand like all of the medications that they're on, what sort of plans are going to be able to cover these types of medications and why, and what kind of carriers really take these types of medications and these patients seriously, because at the
Right.
end of the day, I'm just going to say you're going to get more money out of someone if they're going to live longer, because if they die because they weren't able to get access to the medications or to the treatment that's going to save their life, then that's not really in anybody's best interest.
Now, I always think of, there's a couple of bits by Chris Rock, and obviously I'm going to tone it down, but he always called insurance. It's like, you kind of need this. It's called, just in case stuff. It's like, you need this, and you need to get that because sometimes things will happen. And he also has another bit where he talks about how they haven't really cured anything in a really long time, except for like, he used an example of like polio was like the last thing they ever cured. And he talks about, it's like, because the drug companies have figured out that there's no money in the cure, the money's in the medicine. They get you to kind of live with whatever your conditions are, as opposed to actually curing you from it. But that's a whole separate thing. But it's I don't know, he does it a lot more fun. He does it funnier than I can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that
his
all
job.
I think that all people, all agents, everybody, has their thoughts and opinions on the pharmaceutical industry, because in the sense of honesty, that we know where the issues are, but we
Mhm.
just don't know what to do about them. So at the same time, like, until there's someone with more power and more say in it than we do, like, there's not really a whole lot that's going to change about that. So
Yeah,
it's the fact of the matter is that it's the year 2023. Like, you're telling me that we don't have a cure to cancer yet?
right. Yeah,
Like, but so there's more money in the pharmaceutical industry and being able to have somebody go through all these different treatments and keep them on medications that are going to keep them alive. So then therefore they get all that money for that. But it's like, where is the solution? Where
yeah,
is it that we can have a point where we can have all people being healthy and sustaining
right.
living lives? And how is it that we can have provided care that keeps everyone happy and healthy? Because it's like, okay, yeah, cool, like, now I'm free of cancer after going through chemo treatment for however long, but now I'm also thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. So now I can't contribute to the rest of society because now I have no money. So
Right.
it's like, yeah, I'm alive, but now I'm $100,000 in debt. So it's like, now what?
Yeah,
you know
it's funny because as from the human standpoint, and then again, we're kind of talking about the pharmaceutical industry, just an example of how kind of how they operate. But the human part is when I've done like retiree meetings, and you sit down with the retirees and you kind of tell them, they give you their list of drugs, and you can kind of go, all right, this one's a generic, this one's this is a preferred brand, or you kind of find out, yeah, all these drugs are on the formulary, you're going to be covered. And you see the look of relief on their face and just like, okay, I'm going to be taken care of. I appreciate this. Yeah, obviously there's going to be situations like that where there's going to be some out-of-pocket costs on some of the medications or what have you, depending on which type of plan that they have. If it has co-insurance or straight copays, but the human part of you gets a nice, you get a nice feeling when you see that the end result of the retirees, because historically we've kind of just enrolled, and again, I'm getting in the weeds of what I do, but historically we've just kind of done census enrollments, and if the retirees have questions, they call our service center. But there are times when I've done the presentations to the retirees, and you go through, the copays and how it works. And then, like I said before, you sit down with them and specifically go through their medications, and you see them have that relief or that look on their face of like, oh, thank you, this is great, I really appreciate this. It's like, and then their employer, they appreciate what their employer is doing for them as well, or municipality or school or what have you, saying it's like, all right, they're taking care of us, this is good. Because from my stand, again, retirees don't like change. People don't like change, period. But retirees really don't like change. So, you try to make it as less disruptive for them and as secure for them as possible.
Yeah. Can't teach an old dog new tricks, right?
No, no.
But so actually, I do remember my number 10 point, which was actually to keep it short. And
Yep.
again, that is something that I also heavily struggle with because again, I am a talker. I get it from my grandma. She babysat me pretty much my entire life, and she talks a lot as well. So that's kind of just where I get it from. But being able to explain things in a short and concise way is something that I know that for myself I need to work on. But how is it that you find that in your business, you're kind of able to get your point across and keep it short, sweet, and to the point, and just kind of giving to your clients the information that they need to know?
And again, it goes back to, having a good elevator speech, I think, and just kind of giving the 30,000-foot overview of kind of what you do, and, keep it into bullet points. And then if those bullet points hit one of the pain points for the person that you're talking to, that potentially will lead to more and more conversation to seeing like, all right, what can we do to help you out, or what can you do to help me? And then you find like the common ground and things like that we were talking about before. But I think it's like you said, if you don't get stuck in the weeds, you just kind of keep it as that, just here's kind of what I do. Oh, okay, I didn't know you could carve out retirees on a group basis. And it's like, yeah, you can kind of do XYZ and then you kind of get into more of the details, and this is what I need in order to quote. And, the turnaround time is about this, and implementation is this, and, things like that. And, here's the support we can provide. And, you kind of get into all of those details kind of later on, but you lay the groundwork with a, just kind of a quick, bullet point summary of kind of what you do, and not try to take up too much of their time, because either they're going to understand you and want to learn more, or maybe they don't understand you and maybe they get a little confused, and you can kind of give them more background to kind of, or they're just kind of like, yeah, I don't really do a lot of that. And you're like, oh, okay, that's fine. We'll just move on and do something else.
Yeah. Yep. I think it's like you said again, it's just like having those bullet points, finding what it is that somebody is going to connect with you on, because if they had a pain point that fits, something that you were able to describe to them that you can provide a solution for, that's really when they're instantly kind of like, ooh, I need that. It's kind of like that little trigger or that little like light bulb moment going off in somebody's head saying like, ooh, that's what I need. I need help with that.
Or it's
Being
like
able to,
the speed dating, where it's you're kind of just you're kind of hearing what either one's into back and forth, and within like maybe a minute or 30 seconds, you're kind of like, yeah, I think I could hang out with that person or whatnot. So yeah.
oh yeah. I think that people can tell within a very short period of time as to whether they want to work with someone or not. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And I think that it's very important that as any small business owner, whether you're an agent, broker, or whether you own a restaurant, whatever the case may be, somebody's impression of you and just your ability to make them feel welcome and make them
Mhm.
feel important is something that's really important, like I said, in any small business, because you never get that second chance. And
Right.
somebody will be able to tell pretty much straight away based on how you speak to them, how you engage with them in conversation. That's kind of how they assume that they're going to be treated for the duration of their experience with you. Because, as an agent, you don't get to like some relationships, from, meeting that person till, closing the sale, can be very, very lengthy, especially if it's someone that you've never met before. If they're like kind of like a mutual friend, or maybe you've known them for a long time, obviously the distance from meeting to sale is a little bit closer because they know you better. You already have a relationship of trust and rapport. But it's a lot easier to lose the sale if you're not having that good conversation with someone, and if you're not making them feel like they're being heard, or making them feel like they are important to whatever it is that you're having this conversation about. Because if you're not making them feel important, they're just going to go find somebody who will.
Right.
But yeah, so Ken, do you have a rule for good conversations? The Ken rule.
Yeah, the one is, and maybe it's just you kind of get older, and it's just you just got to be yourself. I think it's more of and be genuine, because people, I think even today, I don't know, and again, maybe it's the social media thing or whatever, but I think people can kind of see through when you're potentially BSing them and stuff like that. So the way that things move so fast now, you want to make sure you're being as yourself and genuine as you can, because people don't have time, for fake. So you just want to make sure that you're being yourself, and you're not going to please everybody, and that's fine. That's just kind of the way it is.
Yeah. I tell one of the things that they kind of like pounded into our brains in business school was that you can service everyone, but you can't market to everyone, and you're not
Right.
going to be everyone's cup of tea, but you might be somebody else's shot of whiskey. So just being able to be yourself, and the types of people that you attract into your life and that you're going to be attracted into your business are going to be there because they genuinely like who you are. If you find that you're kind of like losing clients, and that, or like that you're finding that your clients are just not the highest of quality, let's just say, it's probably because that's just who you're attracting, and that's what the sort of energy that you're putting out into the world. So if you want clients that are genuine and nice people, and that are easy to work with, and don't have, I mean, like, I'm not going to say don't have a whole lot of complaints, because I think that no matter what industry or business that you're in, everybody's going to have complaints about something. But that what you're getting out, what you're putting out into the world, is what you're going to be getting back. So as if you're going to be able to be a good conversationalist and be a good genuine person and have your heart in the right place, those are the people that you're going to be attracting, and that's how your business is going to flourish, because happy people will refer other happy people.
Right. Yeah, you don't want a bunch of Debbie Downers and stuff like that or whatever. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, Ken, thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of the Direct Insurance Podcast. I had a good time having a conversation with you about the 10 rules for good conversations. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Where can people contact you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. It's under Ken Peterson, and work for Benistar Group Retiree Health Solutions, and K Peterson at benistar.com, BENISTAR.com. I'm in the Chicagoland area, but my territory is everywhere. So I will literally go anywhere and anywhere for anyone's solutions that need to be done that way. So yeah, that's great. No, I had a great time. I don't know if I've ever done anything like this before. So it was a lot of fun. I like the back and forth. It's like
the game of tennis.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Ken, so much for joining me. I loved having you as a guest. And for any of you guys out there listening, if you are looking for an industry partner, we here at Insurance Advisors Direct would love to be considered. You can call us toll free at 1-800-381-0977, or you can even visit our website, www.iadbrokerage.com. You can also find us on Facebook, as well as LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. If you are interested in watching this podcast the day after it airs on the podcasting platforms, you can view it on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Insurance Advisors Direct. Again, Ken, thank you so much for joining me today. It was lovely having you, and I look forward to hearing from you or seeing you again soon.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Bye.